Tucked away on the Cow Peninsula, Dunoon is located in the south of Argyll and Bute. The rural town has seen better days, with a high street that has empty outlets everywhere you look. During the height of the Cold War, the Holy Loch became the home to the US Navy for over 30 years, and the departure had a huge effect on the town. Working in the background is a project that hopes to restore the town and bring new visitors to the area.
The Dunoon Project to the town is a game changer. It's as simple as that. It is massive.
This is Dunoon's story and its plan for the future. My name is Rhonan Colquhoun and I grew up in the town. 1961 would become a memorable year for the town and its residents, as many took to the shore to see the arrival of the first US submarine in March. However, the arrival was met with mixed emotions. Dunoon itself was in need of a lift, following a huge drop-off in tourists going down the water for a weekend getaway, while selected residents had their concerns. At the height of the Cold War, protests by the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament in the UK pushed back the arrival to the Holy Loch, and protests at the site were a common occurrence. Despite this, as the two cultures were becoming intertwined, the town residents and sailors started to get along, as current resident Bud Fisher reminisces.
It was just like a visitors. They were just visiting to begin with. There'd been a couple of American ships in before that, and we never really got to know them, but we saw what they were like and when they all came here. You just had to mix in. But being 11, the kids went to schools. Some went to Kiln School, some went to St Mons, some went to Dunoon Grammar, and the kids all seemed to mingle. You know, but the Americans, I loved them being here. They were absolutely different. Different culture, different people, different ways of life. They obviously drove on the wrong side of the road. One or two wee accidents, but that was all food for thought with the newness of different people. It'd just be like aliens come to Britain or the world or whatever.
Local business owner Paul Colquhoun was born just over a decade after the Americans arrived and recalled his memories.
I was born in 1973, so by that point the Americans had already been here for a decade. So I grew up with Americans as classmates at school, as neighbours. We would see the MP cars driving about the town, patrolling the streets at night. Obviously when the Americans were here they had their own jurisdiction. I remember as a young scout, as part of the local scout troop, we were invited out onto the USS Hunley, and if you can imagine the security that would be around a US warship, if you like. So we were invited out. The security was high and there was obviously areas we were not allowed access to within the ship, but that's an opportunity that many people don't get. So fond memories.
Dunoon Grammar School head teacher David Mitchell also grew up in the town and looked back on his time as a young boy.
Some great times when the Americans were here. Growing up as a pupil in here, the school roll at the time was 1,200 young people, and now it's only 750. But many of them were Americans, and we made many American friends as well, which was great. I also lived next door to an American who lived in Nelson Street from when I grew up, who still keeps in contact with us just now. So again, as I say, we've made many friends and family connections. But as a young boy, I remember Argyll Street being so busy. There was a Dunkin' Donuts. There was a fantastic record shop. I used to go down there and spend my money. There was the most amazing toy shop as well, and we had an American diner, which was now Deja Vu, the tea room. That American diner was where a lot of us had our birthday parties when we were young, so it was very, very popular. Did great burgers, etc. You were very lucky if you had an American friend, because you could get into the American commissary, which was the American supermarket. And again, I remember coming out there with root beer the soft drink root beer, and also remember coming out with American candies, which were just divine, which was fantastic. So it was great if you had that connection. And also, I remember the American base out at Sandbank. So you used to be able to go out there and roller skate, 10-pin bowl. And again, if you had an American friend, you could get in there. And we used to have lots of birthday parties out there as well.
Despite technological advancements in the early 90s, the residents of the town and the wider area still heavily relied on their weekly paper to break down the news and give insights into local events.
Today, I have been given special permission to look at these books. This book in particular is dated back in 1991 and contains all the stories throughout the year. However, I'm going to be looking at the story that broke the 9th of February 1991, which is when the American Navy decided to announce the closure of the Holy Loch base.
In the weeks that followed, the paper conveyed the general feeling in the town, which was of fear and panic. The fear was that the vacuum filled by the Americans would not be replaced and the town would fail to recover. Located on Dunoon's High Street, the 51st Day pays tribute to the American era.
Well, during the height of the Americans, when the Americans were here, this property was known as the Paul Jones, which is a bar that was frequented quite often by the Americans and locals. But when the Americans left in '91, the place had to undergo a few changes. It reverted to a bar known as DeMarco's, and then we took the property on in 2002. We decided to really pay homage to the American history of the Americans being in the town, and we developed what is now the 51st State, and we've been here now for 21 years.
The amount of American memorabilia is truly outstanding, with a menu filled with classic American dishes.
The Americans had a profound influence on the town and the people that lived here. 3,000 people as a proportion of our small population here in a rural community like Dunoon is a huge percentage. So the influence was profound, and they were here for 30 years. So a lot of people grew up with the Americans, were born after the Americans arrived and saw the departure. But even after their departure in 1991, they still had a huge influence and impact on the town, because all of a sudden those 3,000 personnel and their families just were no longer there, and it decimated. Many businesses had to close because there just wasn't the business there to support them.
I was devastated. I was actually working in Sandbank that day and I watched the ship get it. It was absolutely hard to take. A lot of good people went away. Dunoon absolutely shut down when the Americans left.
It was a shame when they left in 1991, and I remember them leaving. Where we are in Nelson Street, you could see the Clyde and you could see the ship going down. We were all out with bed sheets attached to poles and like flags and all that, and the folk were doing that back again as well too, as all the soldiers and everything. So it was great. It was a great memories.
A shell of its former self. Behind me is where the US Navy called the Holy Loch its home for more than 30 years.
By 1992, the threat of the Cold War had evaporated, following the demise of the Soviet Union, hence the decision to close the base. This pier was constantly used as warship after warship, submarine after submarine used the walkway. It's now difficult to imagine, but once upon a time, thousands of tons of American Navy moored on this loch. In the decades since, Dunoon has ploughed on, but struggled to grow, and the many fears that the area would fail to recover came partly true. However, there is an exciting and ambitious project aiming to improve the lives of everyone in the area and make the town a major tourist attraction.
I moved to Dunoon with my family about 20 years ago and had recognised the decline since the Americans had left following the shutdown of the naval base in Holy Loch. So having brought a young sort of family into Dunoon, one of the things that families do is take the kids out for days out and activities. And that's one of the things we used to do as a family. So places like Matlock, Heights of Abraham was one place we visited, which was a gondola that goes up to the top of a hill, visitor centre up the top. And that actually transformed Matlock into a very successful tourist destination from a suffering town. So as part of sort of living here and working here, recognised, well, Dunoon needs something. It needs a reason for people to visit. You could see the decline in the numbers and the problems that surrounded that. So I started to come out with some ideas, and why could we not have something like that? The Zip World in North Wales was another activity that we'd visited as a family, which was extremely successful. I looked into Zip World and saw that within the first few years of trading, it had turned over sort of nearly £5 million, made £2.5 million profit, created 120 jobs in the local vicinity, paid over the living wage, so very, very successful, and in the middle of nowhere. So I thought, well, why can't we do this in Dunoon? Why can't we have something like that? We've got a fantastic backdrop to the town with hills, and why could we not bring a zip line, gondola, and activities into the back of the hill there? So I started to look at that, and then started to build a team of of a local business people in and around Dunoon that I'd known through having a business here, and we sort of set up the Dunoon Project. It was trying to then facilitate a community project where the community could regain control and have control of what goes on in their town and what goes on the back of on the hill at the back of the town. So we very much wanted to engage as this is a community idea and a community-driven project, which is what we did. So the concept of the Dunoon Project Limited, which was a charity, was born. One of the biggest challenges was looking at location for the base station, for the gondola. Now, ideally speaking, West Bay area of Dunoon, where people can come across on the ferry, they would visually see it, and it's a good sort of location without any having to sort of disturb any housing or anything like that, with the gondola going up the back of the town to the top of the hill. The few years, due to sort of a COVID, I suppose, one of the big hotel sites, Glenmorag, came up and for sale, and that was what we deem as our A1 position for the gondola site. We were quite fortunate in that some of the people that were behind the project were able to put their hands in the pockets and actually go out and purchase the Glenmorag with the purpose of having that as the main sort of base station for the Dunoon project.
Behind me, in the distance, you'll find the former site of the Glenmorag Hotel, but now it serves a bigger purpose, the base of the Dunoon Project. I have very fond memories of my time here at Dunoon Grammar School, none other when I was head boy in S6. The first ever speech I did was down at the Borough Hall. It was the first ever community meeting of the Dunoon Project, and myself and the head girl at the time chaired that.
So the Dunoon Project's an exciting, I suppose, initiative for this town. And when it started off, the big meeting in the Queen's Hall, the head boy and head girl were there, and that they chaired it that time for the first meeting of the community to kind of launch the Dunoon Project idea. And since then, the Dunoon Project have really wanted the grammar school to be involved. It's very important that young people are involved in the project because it's their town. You know, the Dunoon Project is a group of local businessmen who are really working very hard to try and drive this forward. But our young people in the school here, and not just in our school, but in our primary schools, are the voice of the town, and they're the people that are going to be living here in the future, so it's important that their voice is heard. So the Dunoon Project have been taking a risk and a gamble by giving us and our young people the opportunity to share their views, and it's great that they've been able to do so because it's helping shape what the future and what this is going to look like.
Sort of project, which the intention was to make it a world-class project, would have the ability to create hundreds of new jobs in the town, bring in thousands, tens of thousands of visitors every year, and the job creation being the key, giving the youngsters in the schools the opportunity to live and work in Dunoon, because we found that so many of them were just having to move away for careers. You get the likes of the schools and the kids getting excited and motivated behind all this. It makes it all worth it, and it also encourages you, to do this. We're doing this as volunteers.
Bringing a range of events to the town, Dunoon Project attracts visitors to the area.
BID is an acronym for Business Improvement District, and a Business Improvement District, put simply, is where businesses have the chance to vote as to whether they want our Business Improvement District to become in existence for normally a period of 5 years, and that vote becomes legally binding and it's enshrined in Scottish planning legislation. Dunoon is now just at the end of its second 5-year term and on the cusp of hopefully getting voted in for a third term, which should allow a third 5-year term to build on what's already been achieved, which has been largely 95% an events based. The Dunoon Project to the town is a game changer. It's as simple as that. It is massive. It's the future of the town.
Since the first gathering in 1894, the largest Highland Games in the world, is optimistic about the future.
I think, and what I would hope is, I think the Dunoon Project, the cow gathering brings people to Dunoon at the end of August every year. I think something like the Dunoon Project is going to bring people to Dunoon throughout the year. And I know that people that come to Dunoon for cow quite often come back at other times of the year. So my hope is that people who are coming to the Dunoon Project throughout the year will find out or become aware of the cow gathering, and that they will come back in August, kind of maybe the reverse of what happens just now, that they'll come here, they'll spend some time at the Dunoon Project, they'll get to know Dunoon, and they'll want to come back in August for the gathering.
Travelling to the town has been made accessible mainly by sea. However, the service of one of the 2 ferry operators has been under continual scrutiny, as Brendan Wallace explains.
You'll also, I think, with the ferries, which is a big sort of topical subject, which has been going on for years and years in Dunoon. And again, because the amount of people that will come over, and the beauty with this project is people will be able to come over as a foot passenger as well, and not have to bring a vehicle. So a green element of this project. And the ferries will automatically have to sort themselves to cope with that influx of extra visitors.
The foot passenger service run by Calmac has been a constant topic of debate in the town for several years. However, as Brendan Wallace alluded to, the service would automatically have to improve to support the extended number of visitors the Dunoon Project aims to bring.
The passenger ferry service, which typically runs once an hour, has suffered numerous mechanical issues with its primarily 2-vessel fleet, and where the piers are located, any adverse weather causes huge disruption.
Again, it's one of these things, I do not see it being a problem in terms of that infrastructure, because it will happen. You know, and the ferries will get sorted because of the amount of extra people. We've got an excellent car ferry service currently, with Western Ferries, which provides a phenomenal service.
There's definitely parts of the town and immediate surrounding area that will have to improve, but the general feeling is that the town is ready.
The likes of the local events that we have in the town, the Cowl Gathering, the events that the Dunoon Presents bring to the town, the Dunoon Project on the horizon, the future is positive. It has to be.
Once we've reached that sort of pinnacle and that goal, and there's things happening up on that hill, then that's from my perspective, I'll feel right. That's the job done, and can sort of stand up and say, yeah, okay, we've done what we set out to do.
Time will most certainly tell if the Dunoon Project and its vision comes to fruition. In the meantime, local businesses and residents hope to navigate the next few years, no matter how difficult, in the hope that in the near future, Dunoon is placed firmly back on the map.